Hi, how's it going? This is Resin with Collinwood for YouTube, back with my final Dark Shadows video for tonight, my friends. It is going to be episode 50, reaction and review. Here we go, here we go. By the way, there's going to be some screaming by the end of this one. This is actually the episode where they find Bill Malloy's body. This is at night, by the way. I've talked about how this would not be a long day because they started off midday. It's not. They're at night already, and I think the night might drag on a bit. You see Carolyn at Widows Hill, Vicky's walking toward. This started at the Great House. They had a Great House, and they showed um, a on location scene where Victoria walks out the Carey mansion. So Carolyn is at Widows Hill, Vicky's at Widows Hill. Carolyn's gonna lose her watch. That she's actually, you can see she's wearing a watch actually. You hear, you hear the waves crashing beneath the rocks. Great sound effects. I love how Vicky just sits down next to her and they're having this conversation. And she's contemplating all the things. Says she's looking for, Carolyn says she's looking for something special. Ghost. Vicky's like, oh. Carolyn's like, that's her ghost. Carolyn's like, they're all around us, everywhere. And you hear the ominous music in there. There's your intro. You notice in this episode that the intro looks a lot brighter. Serious, it does. You can somewhat see the words dark shadows. It happens. It happens. What do you do, right? Um, I love this shot here of the waves. You get the music, and there's the waves hitting the rocks. Great shot. Great, great shot. Yeah, John Sedgwick is directing this episode, by the way. Art Wallace is your writer. I love what Carolyn says. You don't have to feel. You don't have to see them. You can feel them. She's talking about the ghost. It's a, Carolyn says. Carolyn asked Vicky if she saw her mother. Vicky said no. She asked Vicky, does she realize how upset her mother is about Bill Malloy? And Vicky said, yeah, I do that. She did see Vicky's mom earlier, but she didn't see, or sorry, Vicky didn't see Carolyn's mom before she came out to Williams Hill, but she did see her earlier in this very episode. That's a long. When you think about that for a second, even if you go that like if you're going like it was 11:30 and the latest she saw her was like 12:30, 1 o'clock. Even if it was, that's a that's a long time to not see somebody. I mean, she might have not have. I like how they're talking about Carolyn's mood, how her mood's up and down. Carolyn, or sorry, Vicky asked Carolyn if she think something really happened to Bill Malloy. Carolyn said she used to come up to Widows when everything was bothering her when she was a kid. Something's really going to bother you by the end of this episode there, sweetie, let me tell you. Alexander is my favorite scream queen. If I can find the clip on YouTube, I will share the hell out of that. Joe Haskell gave Carolyn that watch for her 16th birthday. And Ricky said, "Is that what bothering you, Joe?" Carolyn's talking about how she keeps turning, basically, she keeps turning Joe's marriage proposal away. It's because you don't want to marry him. It's okay. And there's the wind howling. The widows, actually. Great sound effects, by the way. I love the psychology here because you're going right back to the widows, basically. And that's what Carolyn's sort of talking about. So wondering if it's going to end like her for that, wandering around the great house wailing. Interesting. Carolyn says the widows are saying, help me, please help me. Somebody help me. Great lines. Great lines. And there's David. He's saying, help me, please. David is in the drawing room talking to his Aunt Elizabeth. Let's help. He said, there are things in my room. David says there are things in his room he can't see but they're there. He's like, can I say them? So David, because David can't stay downstairs, I would have just left him sit on the couch. Like, what's so hard? He's in his night clothes, like his night clothes. David runs into his room because he's upset. So Elizabeth hands up the phone. She's probably going to call Roger. The door opens and shows she thinks it's Roger. It's Carolyn and Vicky. I'm trying to see if they get a shot of Carolyn's wrist before she realizes her watch is actually lost. We get a nice shot of the stairs and then Carolyn and Vicky standing by the steps. I love the little pose Alexander makes by the staircase. It's really good. Yeah, by the end of this episode, Carolyn's gonna go back to Widows Hill because she realizes she loses her watch that Joe gave her. Vicky agrees to go with her, and they they find a corpse. They find a body at the bottom of Widow's Hill. Of all places, right? Of all places. That's where you're going to find a body, at the bottom of Widow's Hill. Like I said, Victoria Alexander screams really good in this episode. That girl has a set of lungs on her. And you see Carolyn playing the piano, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. No Jailhouse Rock? I'm kidding. Um, that would have been funny if she would have did that. And Vicky walks in with tea, with a tea set. And there's the phone running. And Carolyn's hoping it's Bill Malloy on the phone because the phone's ringing. She says, hello. Hello, Joe. It's Joe Haskell. He's calling to see if they heard anything from Bill Malloy. They haven't heard nothing. No. One peep, and they're never going to. I won't say they're never going to hear nothing from him. Vicky's going to hear from him as a ghost. Not in this episode. Figured I'd answer that here. Yeah, this is episode 50. For those who want to know, I'm at the big 5-0 out of 1,125 episodes. And Elizabeth comes in and asks if it was Bill Malloy. No, it was Joe. Tell her it was Joe. I love the tracking shot we get of Elizabeth going to the window here, and she opens it. Here we go. Up, and there's a. So John said we did a tracking shot of Elizabeth going to the window, open it. Now we're getting the outside for the outside window, looking in. We get a close up. We see Elizabeth. We see Carolyn, and you can somewhat see Alexander a bit. She sort of weaved in and weaved out a bit there. I don't know if she was supposed to, but I like the fact. And Again, they're talking about being worried about Bill Malloy, and he just Elizabeth wishes Uncle Roger were home, and some suspense music was playing as Elizabeth goes to the phone and calls the office. No answer. Yes, they're telling her about the Wailing Meadows a bit. He wa- he wants Carolyn wants her mother to tell Vicky about the three people who jumped from the hill, and I love how Elizabeth is very upset in this episode. She does not want to talk about death and Bill Malloy's disappearance. There's no talk about legends and ghosts. Again, I've talked about how Jen Bennett's character, Elizabeth, is the boss and she puts her foot down. But there's also times when she's putting her foot down, her character is very tense and scared and nervous. And this is one of those times. And Carolyn, and yeah, Vicky says Carolyn was just trying to cheer you up. She knows, but sometimes the legend of Colwood seems too real. That's out of Elizabeth's own mouth. That is a great line. It's 'cause it is. So, so the legend that Carolyn wanted to talk about was a third widow will join the other two. Actually, there's already a couple. There's a good bit. So Roger is finally home. Lewis Edmonds. So Miss Winters like how Lewis Edmonds, he comes in with all this swagger because he can own a room, and he does. He tells Miss Winters pleasant dreams. He goes into the kitchen, gets a sandwich like he owns the joint. What a boss move! Like what a boss move! He's gonna deal with the real boss here in a sec, and there's gonna be hell to pay, sort of. She's gonna scold him hard. Why'd you lie to me? Oh my god. There's so we got a shot of Victoria's room. I haven't seen one in a while. She goes to the window, just checking it. Death on her mirror. There's death written on Vicky's mirror. She wants David to read what it says. He says death. David said he didn't write it. And Vicky's like a ghost or a widow. David says no, he's not wiping it. It does sort of look like David Hennessy's character was asleep. He's like, he wipes it off. It's as satisfied. He says I didn't really angry. He says it was the widows. He's he's not happy. There, they showed it. They showed her wrist, and there's no watch. She said it could be anywhere. Vicky maybe one of the windows took the watch. I like how Carolyn makes it says about the ocean air will ruin her watch. That is probably true. Ocean density and stuff in the air, that salt air hitting it would not be good for it. So we're in the drawing room. Cold chicken sandwich and a glass of milk. I love how Liz is like, "Where you been, Roger?" He goes, "I don't have to ask that question. I know where you've been for the past 18 years." By the way, you still see the scar on Roger's head. True. So Roger drove out to Bill Malloy's cousin's house, and he said it was a wasted trip. It was a long trip. It must be in Bangor. That's what I take. It's either in Bangor. So she said, "Did you also forget to tell me you saw Bill Malloy last night?" He's like, "How'd you know?" He said, "Doesn't." She's like, "It doesn't matter. I want to know why he was here." She says he was here arguing with you. You were both arguing. Some mention of me. So Liz was hounding him. She was saying why Bill was here, what you were arguing about. It's a business matter. He lies his ass. Something to do for Nova. He's like, of course not. He doesn't necessarily tell a complete lie. He says that there are a number of differences him and Bill Malloy had over the cannery. Liz knows that's somewhat true, so she's like, okay, go on. The Carolyn's relax with her. He's like, take your time. Um, he tells his sister, once you go to bed, she just give him this stern look like, uh-huh. So Liz walks out the drawing room. Vicky and Carolyn are going out the window, so you know what's coming next if you've seen this episode. Scream. There's David standing at the top of the steps. Where's Miss Winterschool? She's looking for West Dodge. So what she's gonna find, that's what he says. She's going to find death. And there's the scream, and there's the body of Bill Malloy. on the rocks. Bill on the rocks. That's going to be a drink. No, there's the suspense music. So episode 50 is when they finally find Bill Malloy, and he is deader than a doornail. This episode, its big moment is Bill Malloy. I mean, that's the moment you're sort of waiting for, and they've been building to this episode here a bit. Obviously, as I've talked about, though Bill, you see Bill's body here. I've talked about the episode where Elizabeth feels very uneasy. She's up late at night. And that's the same night the meeting takes place. That's the episode I would say they're not telling you Bill Malloy's dead, but they're giving you that hint that he is, his character, that Frank Schofield's character is dead. In this episode, you see Bill Malloy's body laying on the rocks. Vicky lets out a scream. She's screaming. No wristwatch for Carolyn. But a dead body for sure. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this review. Have a great night.